What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast, presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Sean Zerillo and Charlie DiSturco, diving into Friday. It's Friday, August 16th in Major League Baseball. 14-game slate. The Giants and Oakland A's, the Bay Area matchup. They're playing a 2-game series starting Saturday, so those teams are off. We come to you on Thursday evening, the 15th, to get you set for a loaded slate in baseball. So without further ado, we'll do what we normally do. We'll start with best bets. Sean Zerillo, what do you have for us?
Yeah, just got updated lineups. So the Cincinnati Reds, both for the first 5 inning and the full game, and I've adjusted my price targets upwards, closer to minus 135 for the full game and minus 150 or so for the first 5 innings. Even closer to minus 155. So I think the market knows how bad Michael Lorenzen is. I haven't found too much value going against him. In fact, I think I've unfortunately had to bet or try to bet on a couple of his unders that have blown up. But I do think Nick Martinez is underrated by the betting markets. This is a guy who went overseas, came back, was working out of the bullpen for the Padres last year, was pitching well enough that they put him in the starting rotation. And he's made some adjustments. He added a slider to his mix, which grades out really well. He only throws it about 10% of the time. But what you are seeing from Nick Martinez is a very low walk rate, a 2.7% walk rate, which would put him on par with your major league leaders. That's roughly where George Kirby finished last year. That's below where Zach Eflin finished last year. So elite command from Nick Martinez and less than half of his career mark. He was previously walking guys closer to 7-8% of the time. Still above average, but nowhere near the elite level he's currently at. And also throwing the ball in the zone 52% of the time, which is a career high for him as well. So I think Nick Martinez showing across the board not only above average results, 2.9 expected ERA, a 299 FIP, but then also a 108 pitching plus, with an above average stuff plus rating. It's not all based in control. He actually has decent pitches he mixes in and also a 3.5 body ERA. So I think across the board, Nick Martinez is actually proving himself to be like a number 2 starter. And the Reds with him and Hunter Green, they're playing really well right now. And I think they could potentially be playing their best baseball of the season down the stretch. They just swept the Cardinals at home, facing the Cardinals' top 3 starters, sort of obliterated them offensively. So I think their lineup is locked in right now. And I think Martinez is still flying under the radar as an underrated arm. As I said, Lorenzen, everything indicates he's a number 5 starter, a replacement level arm, 4.75 expected ERA, a 5.03 expected FIP, a 5.1 body ERA. We also constantly mention the Royals' home road splits, the drastic difference in their strikeout and walk rates on the road versus at home. And then the Reds have the clear bullpen edge here too. Not something I realized immediately, but it's very evident. The Royals, as I've said, they've been a bottom 5 bullpen for most of the season. Since the trade deadline, they pushed closer to 20th, 24th. So they're still a bottom 10 bullpen, no longer a bottom 5 bullpen. The Reds are first in pitching plus this year, 6th in strikeout minus walk rate, 10th in expected FIP. And I feel like they are throwing better of late than they were earlier in the year as well. So clear starting pitching edge, clear bullpen edge. And I think they may have the better lineup too, considering the Royals offensive split. So again, up to about minus 155 for the first 5 innings and minus 135 for the full game, taking Cincinnati.
All right. Yep. They've won 4 in a row, tied with the Tigers right now for the longest streak in baseball. Charlie, you're going to target Lorenzen as well. Same game, and you're going to one of Cincinnati's hitters.
Yeah, before I say who, I do want to just point out, and Cincinnati is an underrated team. They their expected win-loss is 66-55, which is third in the wild card race. They're better than Atlanta, better than the Mets. So this team is pretty good. Now we talked about the Giants last time, and they didn't play too well against Atlanta in 2 winnable games. They blew it, but I don't think Cincinnati's as scary to me in the postseason than a team like San Francisco. But it's super interesting to know that they've completely underperformed and should be 11 games above 500, not a game below 500. But the guy that I'm targeting here is Elly De La Cruz. I'm still waiting on the hits, runs, RBI line. We're recording obviously on Thursday night, so that is not available yet. But his total bases right now, I think 2 is 140. Just to get a hit is minus 180. I think that he's going to at least get 1, if not 2 hits here today against Lorenzen. And, Sean talked about how bad Lorenzen is. His 2 main pitches, the 4-seam and the sinker, are also Elly's 2 best pitches to hit off of. +5 run value on the 4-seam, a +8 on the sinker. And, we talked about the negative regression of Lorenzen. He's giving up the worst barrel rate of his career, his worst home run rate, 1.4 home runs per 9. And Elly De La Cruz is a switch hitter and can't hit lefties. That number drastically changes righty to lefty. Against righties, about 290 average and a 920 OPS. Against left-handed pitching, 216 and 674. So great matchup for Elly, against a guy like Lorenzen who doesn't really strike out the opposition. That gives up a lot of barrels. I think Elly is primed to do damage here, not really succumb to the strikeout rate. And, he's been playing pretty solid of late as well. The total bases, I believe, is over 1.5 in 5 of his last 10 entering this game. So looking to buy on him either in the hit run RBI market, as long as it's sub 130. And if not, I'll be dabbling in some total bases.
Okay, very good. Yeah, +55 run differential for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, it's above the Braves. They're 4th best in the NL. 5th best.
They're not out of it. I know it's been like the NL wild card all year, and they're not quite out of it. They're 4 out. I think,
especially when the Mets and the Mets are trying to lose every game they can. The Giants can't hit with runners in scoring position. You could blink and see the Reds in that race.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah, they're only they're 4 back in the loss column. Yeah. 4 back total and 4 back in the loss column from Atlanta. All right, moving on. Speaking of the Braves, not the Braves, the Phillies. I'm all over the place. Fade the public. 96% of the bets, 98% of the cash coming in on the Philadelphia Phillies. They take on the Washington Nationals. Oh, our old friend Patrick Corbin is on the mound for Washington. Philadelphia sends Aaron Nola to the mound on Friday. Phillies are home. They're -265 on the money line. Total set at 9.5. Sean, I don't think you're going to back Patrick Corbin. I mean, I guess there might be a way you're kind of backing him to stink.
Yeah, I made this line -260 for the first 5 innings, -230 for the full game. So I'd actually be closer to betting Philly, if anything, maybe as a parlay piece up to -225. Could catch my interest, just finding ways to bet against Patrick Corbin. But I'd rather be betting against him for the first 5 innings because this game pushes closer once the bullpens come into play. And I don't think Aaron Nola has been quite as good this year as he has been in recent seasons, which is, I think, more so why I'm on the over as opposed to, the market knows how bad Patrick Corbin is at this point. He's been one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball over the past few seasons, a 5.9 expected ERA this year, over 6 the past couple of years. And I think over the past 4 years, he has 9 or 10 more losses, more than any other pitcher in baseball. Jordan Lyles is the closest guy to him, and Jordan Lyles is no longer pitching in the major leagues. So it shows you how many losses Corbin has taken. His contract is about to run out. We'll see if he catches on with another team after this big deal with the Nationals expires, or, if we only have 5, 6, 7 more starts left in Corbin's career to fade him. But I made this total closer to 9.75. 88 degrees, 67 mile an hour winds blowing out. You know how bad Corbin is. Also, on top of how bad Corbin is, he's at the lowest fastball velocity and stuff plus level of his career as well. So even though that expected ERA has come back up a little bit this year, there's indicators showing he should be at a career worst level. But going back to Nola 2 years ago, 25% strikeout rate, or I should say 25% strikeout minus walk rate, 25.5%. 32.4% called strike plus whiff rate, and his bot ERA was 2.67. It's fun, but all three of those stats have fallen each of the past 2 years. He's also allowing more home runs. He's at 1.1 for his career per 9 innings. Past 2 years, he's closer to 1.4. So he's getting barreled more consistently. He's not striking out nearly as many hitters. He's not generating as many called strikes or whiffs, which is why the strikeout rate is going down. I still think Aaron Nola is a very effective pitcher. I still think he is a number 2 starter, but I think he's trending closer to being a number 3 starter, to being more of a league average pitcher. And if he's going to continue to allow close to 1.4, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, that is where he's going to end up, being a league average pitcher. He wouldn't be the first guy who, as he continues to age, as that fastball velocity continues to dip, the long balls start coming a little bit more frequently. And he's in the wrong park for that to happen, because the bank does tend to inflate dingers a little bit. And on Friday, the weather in particular, as I said, warm, even in the evening, pretty warm, 88 degrees, and the wind blowing out. So projected this again closer to 9.75, would take up to 9.5 at even money. And, just compare that. Last week we were talking about temperatures cooling down a little bit, right? Getting into the 70s in Boston and here in New York. Tomorrow, it does look like temperatures are up in the 80s, low 90s again. So getting a little bit warmer here, this week than it was last week. Just this is the time of season where the weather is going to fluctuate, from week to week. And it does seem like we're hitting another warm stretch this weekend.
Yeah, 8 home runs allowed in his last 7 starts, Aaron Nola, in 4 straight. And the Phillies have lost 5 straight Nola starts. So this seems like a bounce. But I mean, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Yankees, Twins are all in there. So those are some good, some quality teams, I suppose. Charlie, what say you? Ways you can not necessarily back the Nationals and fade Patrick Corbin?
Yeah, I'm an Aaron Nola truther, so I can't get behind the over in general, but I do want to fade Patrick Corbin as much as I can. Right now, the dude should be rolled into a retirement home and said goodbye, kiss on the forehead, see you later. At this point, at the worst expected batting average and the worst hard hit rate of his career, he seemingly somehow gets worse, despite it being like, man, it can't get worse. So Patrick Corbin's hits allowed right now is 6.5. It's been over that in the last 3 starts. That's intriguing to me. He's a 308 expected batting average, so that's really bad. That's the worst of all of baseball. So, and then Alec Boehm, over 1.5 total bases right now, is the guy that I'm circling. Has a 122 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. He's split proof as well. So if Corbin gets an early hook, which he probably will, and Boehm gets a walk or a single, he'll be fine against the relievers of Washington. The last 15 days, you're looking at it before calculating in tonight's game, which is just wrapping up. Boehm's hitting 330 with a 44% extra base hit rate, added a home run in the first inning of Thursday's game, and counting the at-bats that he's had tonight, in the last 15 balls put in play by Alec Boehm, 67% of those have gone for 94 miles per hour or harder. So it seems like he's locked in at the plate. It seems like the Phillies in general are locked in the plate. I wouldn't, be opposed to you taking their team total as well in this matchup. Patrick Corbin is probably going to give up 4 runs at a minimum here. And then the Washington bullpen doesn't have any arms basically left, and they're just throwing young guys against the wall and hoping it works. So think the Phillies are live in any market that you kind of want to get into here. I would load up on Patrick Corbin fades.
And just to add on top to your point with the over 6.5 hits, they only got 3 innings for Mitchell Parker tonight. They basically went for 3 separate relievers going multiple innings behind him. So they kind of need length from Corbin tomorrow. I would imagine even if he's getting hit, he might get left out there. So sometimes, a guy who might get lit up a little bit skeptical taking the over on their hits because they may just get hooked before they end up giving up enough hits. But it seems like he's in a situation where he may get left out there regardless.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a big weekend for the Phillies to rack some wins up because, they go to Atlanta for 3, at the Kansas City Royals for 3, Royals at home Houston, and then home Braves for 4. It's a big stretch coming up for the Phillies if the Braves make any kind of noise. And I know we've talked about them plummeting, but to kind of seal the deal on the NL East. That's a big couple of weeks coming up.
They fall into, I guess they're tied for the number 1 seed right now, right? Or it's neck and neck with the Dodgers. The Dodgers, despite the fact that the Dodgers have gotten closed down on in their division, and they have 2 competitors within 2 games of them, they've actually moved up in terms of the overall seeding in the National League because the Phillies have played so poorly, and the Brewers are right there too. So it's actually very exciting. The bye competition in the National League right now is really competitive, and if one of the teams overtakes the Dodgers in the NL West, they can end up going from wild card positioning to first round bye.
It's been good. It's been good eating as far as the races are concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a bit of a separation between the Braves and the other teams below them now that the Mets have dropped off. I know we talked about the Reds maybe heating up, getting involved, but kind of seems like, the wild card teams that are currently in those spots may be the 3, but a lot of seeding left to play for, and the NL West bye could be a big deal.
You said this a couple weeks ago, and I think this is when you gave out the future on the Padres. It would be fascinating to see the Dodgers in that lineup, and even if they get starting pitching back, if that team is in a wild card situation.
Just so much pressure on those guys to perform in such a short series. Even think about the Braves, last year, as dominant as that Braves offense was, right? Everybody had a career year, but then they got the week off, and then they had to go play a short series, and it was like, well, if these guys don't hit like one of these 3 days, you're going home. Like, your pitching's not the strength of your team. You're probably going to give up a few runs guaranteed in these games. So like, if your amazing world-class offense doesn't hit for 2 days out of a 220-day season, you're going home. And that seems a little ridiculous, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
I think actually I'm trying to find it now. I can't find it, but it should be funny if it happens. I tweeted out, like, I think it was a year when they got Yamamoto or Shohei. I said, congrats to the Dodgers for losing to the Cincinnati Reds in the 2025 wild card race, or the 24-25 wild card race, which, if that somehow happens here, I'm going to have to check in my lottery tickets, because the Reds are not too far out and the Dodgers are slipping out of that division lead.
They are getting healthier though, and that's the the main concern for their competition right now is Betts came back playing right field. Seems like Muncy should be on the mend. They got Walker Buehler back, so they're finally getting healthy. But also, who starts their playoff games? Like, Glasnow starts one for sure. Does Gavin Stone start the other? Like, they have some weird decisions to make with regards to who takes the ball after Glasnow, because there's nobody that's head and shoulders above the rest in terms of confidence at the moment, or in terms of the level. And they have multiple guys coming back off injury. I guess Flaherty would take the ball in game 2, but who goes in game 3? And then if they're in a longer series, who goes in games 3 and 4? And I think that's a bit of a mystery at the moment.
Let's move on to underdogs. Where do we see value on the slate Friday, Sean?
One underdog I've fired on thus far, Cooper Criswell, I'm assuming, going to start for the Boston Red Sox, taking the place of James Paxton, who they just signed and then immediately went on the IL after a couple of starts. But when Criswell starts this year, the Red Sox are 9-4 overall, when not like their main 4 starters, right? Bayo, Crawford, Pivetta. When one of those guys isn't going, when it's been Criswell or an opener or Paxton, they're 14-15 in those starts. But they're 9-4 when Criswell started, and he's been pretty solid. 3.6 expected ERA, 100 pitching plus league average, 3.2 body ERA. Did get roughed up a little bit as he continued to pitch into the season, then they moved him back to a shorter role. But I think he's a fine arm, and I think their bullpen overall gives them pretty effective innings. They also were able to basically save most of their key relievers tonight. They threw longer stint B relievers behind Pivetta. They didn't go to their better arms. So I think their pitching situation for Friday should be okay. And I think Corbin Burns is just a reduced pitcher compared to what you saw 2 years ago when he won the Cy Young. I still think he's a very good pitcher. I do not think he is the best pitcher in the American League anymore. Or, well, he was never the best pitcher in the American League, but I don't think he's clear top 5 starting pitcher in baseball material anymore. I think he's very good. I think he's still an ace. I just think he's a little bit below what you'd expect. And the clearest evidence pointing to that is a strikeout minus walk rate. It's been 17% each of the past 2 seasons. It's at 24% in 2022. It's at 30.4% in 2021. So it's almost halved compared to 2021. His body ERA is still about 3.5. He has a 108 pitching plus rating. So pitch modeling metrics say he's a very solid pitcher, but also they have him closer to a 3.5 ERA, which is where I put the number 2 pitchers, the higher end number 2s, but still the number 2s, where guys like Skubal are closer to 3 on that body ERA, sub 3, 2.95. So seeing that dramatic drop off in strikeout rate over a 2-year period, down from 30.5% to 23%, just draws the conclusions for me that Corbin Burnes, yes, while he continues to be a great pitcher, is closer to a number 2 starter than he is to being the best pitcher in baseball. So I just think he's a little bit overrated start to start. I find myself betting against him start to start, and I'm sure come playoff time, whoever his opponent is, we will probably end up betting against them. So I think Corbin Burnes, kind of consistently overvalued in the betting markets. That said, he throws a cutter a lot. You can explain away some of that reduction in strikeout rate by the cutter usage, by him generating weak contact, by his ground ball rate going up a little bit, but I don't think you can explain all of it away. And I do think his ERA ultimately this year, next year, settles closer to 3.5 than 3.
All right, Charlie, you don't have an underdog, but you're targeting Dodgers, Cardinals. Do we have a pitcher yet for the Dodgers? We don't know yet, do we?
No, so so I'm targeting Dodgers right now, and obviously I'm waiting on the official word.
It should be Justin Robleski. That's
or Bobby Miller, depending on what happens. So it's either Robleski or Miller.
How do you say his name?
I think it's Robleski.
Robleski, Game 3 starter in the playoffs. That's
silent W.
It can't be River Ryan now because River Ryan got hurt too. Every if you pitch for the Dodgers, your UCL will explode at some point. So
yeah, and hopefully it doesn't happen to Bobby and Robleski. But one of the two is gonna start tomorrow. Bobby Miller was scratched from his start tonight. Robleski's start is TBA on now the minor league site. So they're trying to figure it out. The word will come out eventually. Right now, the Dodgers are minus 134. I'm still a Bobby Miller truther. And even when he came up, the velocity was there. The stuff was there. He just was getting completely stomped on. And I don't know if it was a mental block or what it was. He went out to the minors. He's been okay in the minors, has the high strikeout stuff. But ultimately, what I'm looking to do here is fade Miles Mikolas. He has a 280 expected batting average, a 16% strikeout rate. Both of those rate in the 8th percentile or worse among all pitchers. His hard hit rate is above 40%. And, the Dodgers just came off a series against Milwaukee where obviously they lost the last 2, but they're starting to hit the ball a lot better. They're top 10 in WRC plus against righties over the last month. They're 4th all season. Mookie is now back. It just feels like the perfect time to grab the Dodgers, whether it's a team total or the money line, depending on, who ends up starting, to beat up on Mikolas here. I think the St. Louis Cardinals are struggling, and I think it's a start of a spiral to them completely falling out of wildcard contention, to completely just falling out of the picture in general. I don't think this team is particularly great. And, I know the underlying metrics like Mikolas. I know they say he has a 64% strand rate, but he's trash. 88 stuff plus is just absolutely abysmal. Can't strike out guys, gives up hits, hard hits too. The Dodgers pen's better than the St. Louis pen. The Dodgers offense is better than the St. Louis offense. I am looking to bet the Dodgers here at some fashion. And obviously you can follow me in the app and I'll end up having the bet whenever it comes through. If Bobby Miller's on the mound, I'll most likely be taking that. So that's my only other side. And then my last prop is Sean Manaea over 1.5 walks. I think that's plus 130 right now in the market. He's got a 10% walk rate, which ranks in the bottom 25% of all pitchers. And yes, he's looked a lot better of late. He got shelled against Seattle, but the 2 starts before that, he looked a lot better against Minnesota and St. Louis. He's over this number in 13 of 23 starts, which is about 57%. So getting that extra plus money is nice value. In Miami, as bad as they are offensively over the last 14 days, which I kind of filtered based on when the trades all went down, they are actually 6th in walk rate against left-handed pitching of all teams in baseball. Jake Berger's on a tear right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of pitch around. Manaea is always seemingly in those 3-2 counts nonstop or 3-1 and getting timely outs and whatnot. But I think the Marlins might be a little bit more patient, and the Mets probably want some length out of Manaea, knowing how bad they've They had it today with Quintana, but they did not have to use some of their top arms 2 days ago. So we'll see. But I think Manaea is going to go over his walks too at plus money. I'm happy to take that.
All right. And Sean, take us home. We got a couple more for us.
Texas Rangers in both halves. I need to finalize price targets based on their game tonight, which is still currently in progress. But I think I bet them tonight because of clear advantages that they have, especially defensively. And that still exists for Friday, except we also have the knowledge that Byron Buxton has officially been put on the IL by the Minnesota Twins. And the Twins are a much worse defensive team right now than they have been on the year. Because no Correa and no Buxton, those are probably their two best defenders at the two premium up the middle positions. On the year, Texas first, Minnesota sixth in outs above average, defensive runs saved, 10th versus 21st. But Buxton has been the 12th best center fielder this season. He was fifth last year and in 2022. Correa has been a league average shortstop this season. He's below average last year. While he's dealing with injuries, typically he has the reputation as one of the best defenders in baseball. But their replacements have been awful. Correa was a 0 this year, defensive run saved. Willie Castro has been a -6 at shortstop. Buxton was +4 in 82 games in center field. Austin Martin in 23 games in center field has been a -4. So +4 versus -4. He's played a quarter of the games. Austin Martin also a -3 in 32 games in left field. He rated as a very poor defender in my model. I actually was manually adjusting his defensive value closer to neutral because of how poorly he rated. And I was like, there's no way he could be this bad. Apparently he's that bad defensively. He is a dreadful defensive outfielder with no arm to stop guys from advancing bases. So it's not even that he isn't getting to the balls that other average fielders would get to. Batters or runners are taking extra bases on him because he doesn't have the outfield arm to cut them down either. So it's bad for Minnesota defensively without two of their premium defenders in there. They're still probably an above average defensive team, but they're not the 10th best defensive team. They're 15th, where Texas still rates as a clear top 3, top 5 defensive team for me with their current lineup. The starting pitcher is pretty comparable. Simeon Woods Richardson has an expected ERA about 3.85, Heaney 4.15, but Heaney is the better strikeout minus walk rate. He is the better body ERA. I think they're pretty comparable starting pitchers. Minnesota has the offensive advantage. Minnesota has the better bullpen, but it's not enough to overcome that significant defense differential. So I would bet Texas right now up to about -112. I'm probably going to end up pushing it closer to -120 or -125 is the price target by the time this game wraps up, because when I initially projected the lineups, I wasn't sure that Buxton had been put on the IL yet. So I had projected this initially with Buxton in there for Friday and still showed value on Texas. So that shows you the level of the edge that I see on Texas in this matchup and in this series. And I'll probably, I would imagine, be betting them again on both Saturday and Sunday, assuming I'm already seeing value with these respective matchups. And then finally, the Pirates and the Mariners over 6.5 or over 7 would take the over 7 up to about -105. I think I put -102 in the app, but I do need to upgrade the offensive environment just a little bit further. I had initially kind of suppressed that a little bit till I got better data. So my initial projection was 7.3. I think my updated projection, though, is closer to 7.5, which is why over 7, -105, even -110 would probably be a bet for me. And we discussed it during the Cy Young Rookie of the Year discussion on Sunday night into Monday. Paul Skenes is getting fatigued. His first 10 starts, he averaged 99.2 in his fastball. Last 2 starts, 98 and 97.7. So he's down nearly a tick and a half compared to his first 10 starts. He's down 2.5 miles an hour compared to his major league debut. First start versus last start, 97.7 versus 100.2. So a 2.5 mile an hour differential. His overall stuff plus on the season, 106, 104 location, 105 pitching plus, 3.4 bot ERA. That's overall in the season, which includes his sample over the past 2 weeks, 88 stuff plus, 100 location plus, 99 pitching plus, 4.99 bot ERA. That's a little scary. So I've discussed, his innings limitations and the fact that the Pirates probably aren't going to give him more than 4 or 5 starts the rest of the way. He's probably not pitching past that first week of September. But also, the velocity's dipping. The stuff plus numbers are going down. The walks are going up. The hits are starting to come a little bit more frequently. This is a soft matchup for him. No question about it. The Mariners strike out as much as any team. With Julio back in there, they strike out a lot. They don't have JP Crawford right now, but at one point, the Mariners had, I think, 4 hitters with the 4 of the 5 highest total strikeouts in the American League. I couldn't imagine watching that team. Just eyeballs bleeding, and they need to figure out the batter's eye at T-Mobile Park because it's pathetic. But I think it's very evident that Paul Skenes is dipping towards the end of the season here, and his effectiveness is declining. So I projected this total again closer to 7.5. Would bet the over 7. You could take it to -105 for now. I think that's a good cutoff. To say nothing about Logan Gilbert or the fact that the Pirates aren't as good against righties. It's all irrespective of where I set the number. Last point, I made this line about +105 for Seattle. So anything +115 or better would be a bet for me in the Underdog.
They've got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 7 hitters in the top 31 in the American League in strikeouts. Holy crap.
Is Ty France in there? Because he doesn't even play for them anymore, and he might even be in there.
Oh, good point.
And J-Rod's hurt right now too, right?
He came back. J-Rod's back in the lineup. So.
Oh, is he? But I know he left with a. Did he? Oh, he played today? No, he didn't play today. He got taken out yesterday after swinging and hurting himself and might not even play.
Interesting. So disregard my point regarding the Mariners. Yeah, I didn't see he aggravated his ankle injury. I'm not sure if he's going to be in there, so I would pass on the Mariners. I might have had him out. The model lineup people who do it for me might have put him back in, which is why the adjustment happened, because I initially had this closer to +120. But I would still like the over. And I'd still, at worst, take this up to 7 and -102. And I still, with Julio out, and I still think there's enough value in the over for now.
Okay. I don't see Ty France's name.
Charlie, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see Ty France's name. Okay. Yeah, they strike out a lot. All right. But yeah, we're coming down to the end, I think, for Paul Skenes. Just based on the race too, right? I mean, the personal notes are important, but you protect your asset, Pirates.
And the odds have moved so much closer since we talked about it. And Merrill Skenes last pitch. Right. But this is the real point, though. They've shrunk dramatically since he last pitched. What did he didn't do anything. He just hasn't pitched.
Right.
So what happens when
Merrill hasn't been that great since either.
He made like a nice catch in center field since then.
But he hasn't been hitting game-tying homers this week.
But what happens when Skenes stops pitching on September 5th and then nobody talks about him for a month? Like, he goes out of voters' minds, right? And then Merrill's the guy who's still hitting in the lineup and helping the Padres chug along to the postseason, if not win the division. So I think it's so obvious that this line is going to eventually flip. Does Skenes still win the award? I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe for enough voters for the hype. With Libby Dunn, like, there's a lot of reasons why he could win the award. MLB could rig it for him to win the award. They're not going to do that. But I think it's very evident that Merrill has had the better season so far, and that when it's all said and done, he will have had the better season.
Yeah.
The question is whether he gets the requisite votes. But I don't think there's any argument or denying that he has been better to date and will have a better season at the end, unless he totally falls on his face in September and hits 150 and tanks his batting line. But he's among the NL batting leaders right now. It's not like he's hitting 260 with some nice counting stats. He's in competition for a batting title. That's special. That's the kind of thing that should be rewarded.
Not to mention, we talk about in the market and looking for lines. I mean, Paul Skenes' name has its own tab. It's pasted everywhere.
That's the issue, is what you're working against, right? Is that
that
everybody in the popularity
you
wants
kind of know the answer to your own question.
It's
to a degree.
It's like, do you want to be smart or do you want to appease the public? That's what the lineup 5 days ago was. everyone thinks Skenes deserves it. I talked to a bunch of people after the podcast, and they were like, yeah, Skenes should be the rookie of the year. Like, he's been the best. And I'm like, well, whatever. No one thinks too deep into that.
But all it takes is one blow up. All it takes is him getting up 5 runs in one start, and I think it's over. And he just gave up 4 against the Dodgers. This is a softer matchup. But then I had somebody telling me, oh, have you seen his schedule? He faces Texas. He faces Cleveland. Like, it's pretty soft. I'm like, have you watched the Rangers over the past week? Have you watched the Guardians all season? He goes to Cleveland, one of the hardest teams to strike out. That's a terrible matchup for him. The Mariners, great matchup. Super soft. Maybe he even, maybe he strikes out 10 tomorrow and he goes back up to minus 400. I'll add more Jackson Merrill. That's perfectly fine.
Man, this, I do some work in the WNBA. This Paul Skenes protection feels like we're talking about Caitlin Clark, for crying out loud.
A little bit.
But
how much, and at the risk of outing myself as a non-WNBA fan, I am aware of the fact that Angel Reese, like, in terms of scoring and missed layups, like, there's that whole narrative around her. This is very much a case where you have to figure out how much of the hype of the name brand talent is baked into the voting. Because some voters are going to put them first almost no matter what at this point.
Yeah.
But you get, I think we had talked about the MLB.com straw poll. And even before Merrill had that huge weekend where the odds closed, he had already gotten 4 people picking him as the first place winner. And that was before he closed the gap. So did he swing half of the electorate since then? He was already at, like, I think I put him at 20%, 30% as of that straw poll at best. Did he swing another 20% of the electorate? Is it 50-50 now? Are the lines accurate? I think they are. I think the line right now is pretty reflective of how people would vote. I think 60% still would vote for Skenes, but give it 6 more weeks, and I think it changes.
Okay. And we'll find out how he does against Seattle. They strike out a lot, or do they blast the ball out of the ballpark against him? Okay, very good. On that note, that's it for us. We will talk to you all again Sunday night and get you ready for the start of next week here on Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. For Sean Zerillo, Charlie DiSturco, Brendan Glasheen. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend.